In Italy in around 1969 or 1970, Kaiser Adolf went into a gay bar with some of his Italian acquaintances. He was not allowed to mention who he was or use his real name, so whenever he went out, whoever he was with usually brought him up in conversation to see what people said. He thought it was mind-numbingly boring. So, someone brought his name up in front of some tourists from Switzerland, who did not know who he was. I want to make it clear here that Switzerland had a dossier on my great-grandpa at the time, covering his semen being stolen in 1906, including photographs of the hospital etc., through to details of the children and descendants. Depending on where you went, you could ask to see it in the right venue and be given a look at it. In bars and clubs etc. The tourists from Switzerland started chatting anecdotes and laughing whilst Kaiser Adolf sat quietly listening, having a few drinks. One tourist in particular seemed to take over the conversation and decided to repeat the entire dossier to the people Kaiser Adolf was in the bar with, in every detail he could remember, unaware that Kaiser Adolf was sitting there listening. He got as far as my mother's birth, where my mother etc. had been moved to live in the 1940s, Gippsland, and that she had gotten married when she was around 18 in Gippsland. He knew her first and middle name had been made up to remind Kaiser Adolf of his Jewish connections, implying that if he wasn't in a homosexual relationship with a Jewish man when he became Kaiser, things may have been different. Later expanded to imply there would not have been so many Jews killed after he was abducted. Jew's death marred regret. Judith Margaret. He did not quite get her adopted surname correct. He thought that muslin may have been a Jewish type of material or cloth and settled on that when he could not quite remember it exactly. He and his friends had a short debate about it, asking if muslin was Jewish material or something. They settled on Judith, middle name starting with M, surname starting with Ann. If you are interested, they had 2 letters wrong. My mother Judith was adopted by the Marslen family here in Gippsland. Kaiser Adolf took it all in, with an expressionless face and glazed over eyes, and was his usual like my fake life on television and the rewritten Mein Kampf, self about it. In the end he checked to see if there were publicly available records in Australia, out of pure boredom, that he could look at to see if he could find a marriage entry that included my mother, in around 1957 or 1958. He ended up getting access to the publicly available births, deaths and marriages records here in Australia for the state of Victoria. He looked through them for the relevant years with skeptical, thoughts, methodically, town by town, looking for a marriage that involved M, Judith M, with the rest of the details in his handy notepad. He found one entry and was shocked and flabbergasted. My mother Marslen, Judith Margaret, got married to my father Webb, Kevin George, on the 3rd of May, 1958 in a town called Mo, Victoria, Australia. Kaiser Adolf I was still a prisoner of war in Yugoslavia when my parents got married, still chained to the wall like he had been since abducted in 1943. The entry included a family home address at 27, Campbell Street, Yarragon, Victoria, Australia. A house my father Kevin bought when he was about 20 in 1950, which was stolen off me when he died in 2004. He did not meet my mother Judith until 1957, when she was 17. They got married 4 months after she turned 18. Her sole goal was to steal babies off him, nothing more. I would like to point out here that Switzerland and its organized crime types are not heroes because they stole Prince Adolf's semen when he was 17 in that hospital, which was involved in me being Prince Imperial Sobrian of the Constitutional Monarchy of Germany now. People from Switzerland taking over the Italian mafia using the lies of 2 conmen pretending to be the same person, pretending to be a lawyer, pretending to be the executor of one of the estates left to me by my great-grandpa, to collect bribes, whilst illegally using the name Vincent Corleone, didn't help me in any way either. Kaiser Adolf took some time to think things over and decided that there was the possibility that my parents could have a technically eligible child under the Great-Grandchild Rule, but he would have to come to Australia to find out. He mulled it over some more. He had always wanted to come to Gippsland for a look, and it was the perfect excuse for a laugh. His decision to come here and check the address on record ended up being designed into his intellectual input for the Olympic venues for the 1972 München Olympics, particularly the main stadium. Those ideas were used and heavily modified by others with similar motives to the appearance of the Berlin Wall when it was completed after he escaped the prison in Yugoslavia. He decided to travel here to Australia for a laugh, some tourism, and a look. He invited his handyman employee Mr. Baggio along, to drive the car etc. Kaiser Adolf booked flights using his diplomatic asylum Italian passport under his other name Wolfgang, knowing he would be followed by Italian Secret Service agents, and arrived here in November 1971. Kaiser Adolf had no preconceived ideas about what he would find, only that if Mr. and Mrs. Webb really existed and were living in Gippsland, that he would have to try to talk to them about it without using his real name, just in case. Tough one. He thought it was probably an elaborately set-up prank. More elaborate than the usual, anyway. Kaiser Adolf planned the trip methodically. One of his main motivations was to visit the grave sites of members of my Hohenzollern royal family Constitutional Monarchy of Germany buried in Mo Memorial Cemetery. Mo is the place they are buried, the place Adolf was born, and the place my parents got married in May 1958. So, he was suitably bored suspicious. My mother Judith had somehow managed to get stuck at home with her husband Kevin pregnant at the time Kaiser Adolf confirmed his holiday plans. It was due to a miscalculation caused by bulk seafood being available whilst he was on holidays in Lakes Entrance in East Gippsland. She jumped him one night to attempt to get pregnant again, and then stayed for the seafood for a while because he wasn't around much. Instead of swapping over with her lookalike immediately and going elsewhere to dump the babies, like usual. She was intending to just leave, but stayed for a while to eat the seafood. She ended up having to travel back to the family home in Yarragon with him. When she arrived, she contacted her organized crime associates about swapping over with my father's imposter wife again. She was then informed that the imposter wife had gotten pregnant again to try a fifth implanted child. A descendant of a South African-based neo-Nazi who escaped Germany before the end of WW2 without arrest, who was follow-up stalking my Habsburg royal family. But the man she got pregnant to turned out to be so vilely hideous, she had backed out and had an abortion already. I heard the name Pauline several times. When she had her abortion, it wasn't an official one, the 4AFI amateur type. She had suddenly gotten violently ill afterwards with some type of infection. She had lost kilograms off her frame and was almost unrecognizable, still very ill. She was told there was no way to swap over, particularly if she was starting to show obviously as being pregnant. They told her to ride it out for the full pregnancy, and it would give them time to formulate a plan for the hospital the day of the birth, and everything would be fine. No matter how nice her husband was fluffing her pillows, making sure she was okay, getting her drinks and satisfying her cravings, she would just have to tough it out for the full 9 months. She was horrified. For the first time in their marriage since 1958, she was going to have to stay at home for the full pregnancy and go to the local hospital and try to get the baby robbery done from there. It was going to be the longest time ever she had spent at home with her husband. Longer than when she married him and swapped over with the imposter wife in the first 3 months. Judith came up with a plot to steal all but one baby with some accomplice minions, kill one, show that one to my father Kevin dead, and say something went wrong and nothing could be done, just to see how disappointed he was. My father Kevin was bringing up 4 females, probably vaguely biologically related to me, the children of his real wife's identical-looking imposter, and 4 separate men to my father. There were no biological children to himself, and his wife registered at birth to them both, and in their custody at ball.